Have you ever felt like you're watching the world through a window no one else can see? Like your thoughts, your emotions, and the way you process the world around you don't match the people around you. If you're an INFJ, you've probably had that exact feeling more times than you can count. INFJs are often described as rare, mysterious, or even hard to understand. They're deep thinkers, private feelers, and surprisingly strategic in how they navigate the world. But behind that quiet confidence, many INFJs report feeling overwhelmed, misunderstood, and even disconnected from the people around them. There's been a growing conversation online and among psychologists about how some INFJ traits strongly resemble what we often associate with being neurodivergent. That term, neurodivergent, refers to people whose brains function differently from what's considered typical. This includes conditions like ADHD, autism, sensory processing disorder, and more. But it's not just about having a label or a diagnosis. It's also about how people experience the world in fundamentally different ways, emotionally, socially, and mentally. So what happens when someone who doesn't fit into the standard mold of how a mind should work also happens to be one of the rarest personality types out there? In this video, we're going to explore 6 strong reasons why many INFJs may, in fact, be neurodivergent, or at the very least, why their minds seem to function in a beautifully different way. These aren't just random quirks. They're patterns that connect deeply with what we see in the neurodivergent experience. Let's take a closer look at what makes the INFJ mind so unique, and why that uniqueness might be more than just personality. Reason number 1, exceptional intuition and deep inner world. One of the strongest traits of the INFJ is their intuition. But for INFJs, this doesn't just mean gut feelings or hunches. Their intuition is more like a constant flowing analysis of everything going on beneath the surface. It's quiet, but it's always running. They notice tiny patterns, pick up on shifts in people's energy, and often have a sense of what's about to happen before it does. It's not magic, it's how their brain naturally works. This kind of processing is deeply internal. INFJs can spend hours, sometimes days, inside their own minds, reflecting, daydreaming, or analyzing something they experienced. They replay conversations, imagine future possibilities, or create entire mental models of people and situations. It's not unusual for them to have a detailed inner world that feels more real and engaging than the outside world. This deep inward focus isn't just about being introverted. It's more intense than that. INFJs often struggle to stay connected to the present moment when their minds are constantly leaping ahead or diving inward. Some might even describe it as a kind of dissociation, not in a harmful way, but as a natural part of how they operate. What's interesting is how this aligns with what many neurodivergent people experience. For example, individuals on the autism spectrum often talk about having rich internal lives, deep areas of interest, and intense focus on specific thoughts. People with ADHD describe a mind that jumps quickly between ideas, often disconnected from the world around them. While INFJs don't always have these diagnoses, the overlap in mental activity is hard to ignore. Another parallel is how INFJs process information. They're not linear thinkers. They don't go A to B to C. They might start at Z, work backward, jump to D, and land somewhere between G and H. This makes them excellent at seeing the big picture, but it also means they may struggle in systems designed for straightforward, step-by-step thinking. This non-linear, intuitive processing can sometimes be misread as being distracted, absent-minded, or even disorganized. But the truth is, their mind is simply operating on a different channel. One that's harder to explain, but incredibly powerful when understood. Their deep connection to abstract ideas, patterns, and meanings is often seen in artists, philosophers, and creators. But it's also a common trait in people whose minds are wired differently from the mainstream. So when we talk about INFJs being neurodivergent, it's not just a label, it's a way of understanding the unique way their brain pulls information from the world and processes it in layers most people never notice. Reason number 2, sensitivity to overwhelm, emotions, and sensory input. Another major reason INFJs may be considered neurodivergent is their extreme sensitivity. And this goes far beyond just being emotional or getting overwhelmed. INFJs are wired to feel everything deeply, both the good and the bad. Emotionally, they absorb the moods and energy of people around them like a sponge. If someone's angry, tense, or upset, the INFJ often feels it in their own body. This emotional mirroring can be exhausting. It can lead to emotional burnout, especially in crowded or high-stress environments. Even if they try to shield themselves, their ability to sense emotional undercurrents is often too strong to ignore. This kind of sensitivity is often seen in highly empathetic individuals, but in the case of INFJs, it tends to be more intense and constant. They don't just notice emotions, they carry them, process them, and try to understand them fully. This leads to emotional overload, where the brain simply can't process any more input without shutting down or needing serious time alone. On top of that, many INFJs are highly sensitive to their physical environment. Bright lights, loud noises, strong smells, or certain textures can trigger discomfort or anxiety. This sensitivity to sensory input is one of the clearest overlaps with neurodivergent traits. For example, sensory processing disorder, often seen in autism or ADHD, involves a brain that reacts more strongly to sights, sounds, and physical sensations than most people's do. INFJs may not always realize they're reacting to sensory triggers. They might just feel off or exhausted after being in a loud room or around too many people. Over time, this can lead to avoiding certain settings, becoming more withdrawn, or even feeling like something's wrong with them, when in reality, their nervous system is simply more reactive. There's also the emotional fallout. Because INFJs feel so deeply, they often need more time to recover from emotional experiences. A single harsh comment can stay with them for days. Watching the news, hearing someone's trauma story, or even seeing a sad movie can throw them into a spiral of empathy and sorrow that's hard to shake. This intense emotional and sensory processing doesn't fit neatly into most social environments. Workplaces, schools, and social gatherings often reward fast responses, thick skin, and surface-level conversation. But INFJs thrive in depth, not speed. They need time to think, space to process, and room to breathe. These needs aren't about weakness or being fragile. They're about how the INFJ brain interacts with the world. And in many ways, they reflect the same struggles and experiences that neurodivergent people face when trying to live in a world that wasn't built for their sensitivity. Reason number 3. Strong need for authenticity plus inner conflict with external expectations. ENFJs are known for being authentic, almost to a fault. They have a deep internal compass that guides their decisions, values, and relationships. They don't just want to be liked, they want to be understood, truly and honestly. But in a world that often rewards conformity and surface-level interaction, this commitment to authenticity creates conflict. From an early age, INFJs usually sense they're not quite like everyone else. They may act how others expect, just to get by, but inside, they're watching, analyzing, and quietly wondering why everyone seems okay with things that feel fake, shallow, or cruel. Over time, they learn how to play the game, how to say the right things, act the right way, and blend in just enough. This is often referred to as masking. Masking is a term heavily used in neurodivergent communities, especially among autistic and ADHD individuals. It refers to the habit of hiding one's true thoughts, feelings, or behaviors to fit in and avoid judgment. It's exhausting. It drains energy, creates self-doubt, and leads to a sense of disconnection from who you really are. INFJs often fall into the same trap. They sense what others want from them and deliver it. They mirror emotions, adjust their tone, and act in ways that maintain harmony, even when it goes against their values. But this comes at a price. Many INFJs describe feeling like they're living two lives, the one people see and the one that's hidden inside. This inner conflict is a big reason why INFJs often struggle with anxiety, self-esteem, and emotional exhaustion. They want to be real, but they also want to be accepted. They want to speak their truth, but they're afraid of being rejected, misunderstood, or seen as too much. The pressure to conform clashes with their natural depth and uniqueness. In social settings, they might stay silent rather than speak up. At work, they might hide their creative ideas to avoid standing out. In relationships, they may become people pleasers, sacrificing their needs to keep the peace. Over time, this leads to emotional numbness or even identity confusion. INFJs may ask themselves, who am I really? Why do I feel fake? Why don't I feel like myself even when I'm doing everything right? This is where the link to neurodivergence becomes clear. Many neurodivergent individuals go through the same emotional battles, trying to be themselves in a world that tells them to be someone else. The masking, the burnout, the confusion, the social tension, it all overlaps in ways that are hard to ignore. So when an INFJ feels like they don't belong, like they're hiding their true self just to survive, that's not just personality. That's a system clash. Their mind and heart are built for truth, but the world often demands performance. The INFJ's craving for authenticity and the pain that comes when they can't live it mirrors the emotional and psychological struggles seen across neurodivergent communities. And it's another strong reason why INFJs may actually be more than just different. They may be neurodivergent in how they navigate identity and connection. Reason number 4, executive function. Challenges: you wouldn't think someone as thoughtful and reflective as an INFJ would struggle with basic tasks. But they do, often. They forget to return messages. They procrastinate even when the deadline matters. They zone out when they should be focused. And they feel constant guilt about it. These struggles are tied to something called executive function. That's a set of mental skills that helps you plan, focus, remember instructions, and manage time. When these skills don't work well, everyday tasks become harder than they should be. And for many INFJs, this happens a lot. Despite being capable, smart, and creative, INFJs often find themselves stuck in cycles of overthinking. Instead of starting a project, they overanalyze every possible outcome. Instead of replying to a simple email, they wonder how it will be received, when the best time is to send it, and whether their wording sounds off. The result: nothing gets done. This kind of mental paralysis leads to missed deadlines, cluttered spaces, and a constant sense of being behind. But it's not laziness, it's executive dysfunction. And this is another area where INFJs and neurodivergent individuals often overlap. People with ADHD, for example, experience similar challenges. They want to do the task. They know it needs to be done. But their brain resists starting, gets distracted in the middle, or can't finish. The INFJ version of this often involves deep emotional or ethical layers. They don't just want to complete a task, they want to do it meaningfully, perfectly, or at just the right time. That pressure can make simple things feel impossible. This also affects decision-making. INFJs are notorious for struggling with decisions, especially when emotions are involved. They worry about hurting others, making the wrong choice, or closing the door on another possibility. So they stall. They overthink. They get overwhelmed. This overwhelm isn't just frustrating, it's draining. INFJs may appear calm on the outside, but internally, they're juggling dozens of priorities, thoughts, and emotional reactions. Their brain is working overtime, but the results don't always show it. What makes this hard is that INFJs are often expected to be organized, productive, and in control. When they fall short, they blame themselves. They assume it's a personal flaw, when it may actually be a brain-based difference in how they process tasks and time. So when INFJs talk about feeling lazy, unmotivated, or not good enough, it's often a sign that their executive function system is overloaded. And just like in neurodivergent people, the solution isn't shame or pushing harder. It's understanding how their mind works and adapting to it. This struggle with organization, action, and follow-through is more than a bad habit. It's another reason why INFJs might be walking a path that closely parallels the neurodivergent experience. Reason number 5. Hyperfocus and passionate intensity. When an INFJ cares about something, they don't just care, they pour their whole heart into it. Whether it's a creative project, a social cause, a person, or an idea, INFJs can enter a state of hyperfocus that takes over their time, energy, and attention. During this state, hours can pass without them realizing. They forget to eat, lose track of time, and block out the world around them. Their mind zooms in so tightly on what they're doing that everything else fades away. This isn't just interest, it's obsession, and it can be both a gift and a curse. This intense focus often leads to powerful, meaningful work. INFJs produce deep writing, original ideas, and well-developed visions. But it also leads to burnout. Once the energy runs out, they crash, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Hyperfocus is commonly associated with ADHD, though it shows up in other neurodivergent profiles too. It's a state where the brain locks into something stimulating, meaningful, or emotionally charged and refuses to let go. For INFJs, that's often how they operate when something truly matters to them. They may not be able to focus on boring or routine tasks, but give them a problem they care about, and they'll give you their full brain and heart. This can be amazing, but also frustrating when life requires attention to details that don't inspire passion. Another side of this intensity is emotional. INFJs feel deeply, not just emotions but ideas. They connect with causes, injustices, or ideals in a way that can become all-consuming. When they commit to something, it's not halfway. And when something feels wrong or fake, they feel it like a physical ache. This kind of intensity doesn't always fit neatly into social norms. People may see them as too intense, too serious, or too emotional. But that's just the INFJ in full mode, hyper-focused, emotionally invested, and unable to detach from what matters to them. It's also why they often burn out faster than others. They're not wired for halfway involvement. They either care fully or not at all. And when they go all in, they forget to pace themselves. This way of operating mirrors what many neurodivergent individuals describe: passion-driven focus, emotional extremes, and difficulty balancing intensity with everyday life. It's all part of the same pattern. So when INFJs dive deep into something and lose themselves in it, it's not a flaw. It's a feature of how their mind works. And it's yet another sign that their brain may be functioning differently from the norm, in a way that strongly connects with neurodivergence. Reason number 6. Feeling alienated, alone, and other. One of the most consistent experiences among INFJs is the feeling of being different. Not just quirky or unique, but truly out of place, like they're speaking a language no one else understands. This deep sense of otherness starts early and often follows them into adulthood. As children, INFJs may have noticed they didn't connect with their peers in the same way. While other kids were focused on games or popularity, the INFJ child might have been quietly observing, thinking, or creating stories in their mind. They might have preferred meaningful, one-on-one conversations instead of group activities, and they may have struggled to explain why they felt like they didn't belong. This feeling only deepens over time. As adults, INFJs often report that even in a room full of people, they feel alone. They may have friends, co-workers, or family, but still carry a constant sense that they're on the outside looking in. They may find it hard to relate to surface-level talk, small talk, or typical social behavior. This disconnect isn't always obvious from the outside. INFJs are usually polite, socially aware, and can even come across as charming when they need to. But inside, they're often wondering why no one seems to get them. They may crave deep connection, but feel like it's nearly impossible to find someone who sees the world the way they do. This is another major overlap with neurodivergent experiences. Many neurodivergent individuals, especially those with autism or ADHD, describe a similar, lifelong sense of alienation. They struggle to feel understood, often feel drained by social situations, and find that their way of thinking doesn't align with the people around them. INFJs often experience social exhaustion, not because they dislike people, but because trying to act normal is draining. They adjust their tone, hold back their real thoughts, and work hard to maintain harmony. But this act of constantly adapting adds to the inner distance they feel. It's not uncommon for INFJs to question their own identity because of this. They may ask, "Why don't I fit in, pal?" Or, "Why do I feel fake even around people I like?" That constant questioning, the emotional disconnection, and the experience of masking, these are core experiences that are deeply familiar in the neurodivergent world. Even when INFJs do find connection, they often feel like they can't fully let their guard down. They fear being too intense, too honest, or too complex. So they hold back. Over time, this builds a sense of isolation, not from a lack of people, but from the lack of being seen for who they truly are. When you look at this pattern, lifelong alienation, emotional masking, and a constant sense of being other, it's clear this is more than just shyness or introversion. It points to a deeper neurological experience of the world. That experience doesn't need a diagnosis to be valid. It just needs to be understood. And for many INFJs, that understanding begins with realizing they may be part of a wider group of people whose brains simply work in a different, but no less valuable way. INFJs are often described as rare, insightful, and emotionally deep. But when you take a closer look, you start to see something even more complex beneath the surface. From their intense intuition and emotional sensitivity to their battles with overwhelm, masking, and deep focus, many INFJs move through life in ways that mirror the experiences of neurodivergent people. They think differently. They feel differently. And most importantly, they process the world around them in a way that's not always visible, but deeply real. This doesn't mean every INFJ is neurodivergent in a clinical sense. Not everyone fits a label. But the signs, the overlaps, and the lived experience paint a picture that's hard to ignore. Whether it's their unique way of thinking, their challenges with executive function, or their deep sense of alienation, INFJs often find themselves navigating a world that doesn't quite match how their mind works. But that doesn't mean they're broken. In fact, it means the opposite. INFJs bring depth, compassion, creativity, and insight that the world desperately needs. Their differences aren't weaknesses, they're strengths. They're signals of a mind that sees what others miss and feels what others bury. And whether or not the word neurodivergent officially applies, the truth remains. INFJs are wired differently, and that difference is powerful. If you're an INFJ who's felt out of place, misunderstood, or simply overwhelmed by life, know that you're not alone. There's a reason for how you feel. And there's a whole world of people who experience the same things. Keep learning about yourself. Keep asking questions. And never be afraid to live in a way that honors your mind and your truth. If you found this helpful, share it with someone who might feel the same way, and let us know what topic you'd like to see next.